This is Sophie. When she came into the shelter, her collar, if you can see up here higher, her collar was actually embedded into her neck. We've seen dogs that have had worse cases of that. But what happens is people put a collar on their dog, and as their dog grows, they don't check the collar. And just like anyone else, when they grow, come on, Sophie, she really wants to go back there.
Well, she's a hound and she's following her nose.
The skin actually starts to grow around, around the collar, and that is very painful.
Right.
And so it really is good for people when you put a collar on a dog. That's why we use the Premier collars, so that it's always loose. You know, if I wanted to take this off, I could.
But I got to be honest with you, Cheryl. I mean, come on.
Yeah. How do you not know that the collar is
and
that
you know,
tight?
we've actually seen some that are so bad that they have to be surgically removed.
That the skin is actually grown through and around the
and that's
around
just
the collar.
really really horrible. Hi, honey. Thank you, sweetheart.
And so, so for some people, you know.
And I think it's important.
This would be a long term.
And I think it's important to tell people that a lot of the, well, in fact, all the, with a few exceptions, all of the animals that we'll be showing today, these are all very recent. This is not like we're going over a span of 2 years. This is like literally within probably the last month or so.
Right. And you know what's exciting about Sophie? She's going to be going home soon.
She is.
So she's a wonderful girl, and she's going to have a wonderful home, and won't have to worry about having too tight a collar anymore.
Right, exactly.
All right.
Good. Bye, Sophie. What did
I don't want to put him down, Joni. This is Goober. He's very soft and he's purring. Goober came into us with chemical burns on all 4 of his feet. So the pads of his feet were totally burned, raw skin, and so to help him heal, we gave him shredded paper in his litter box to allow the feet to heal, and had him on antibiotics. And of course, over the course of time, that's all healed. And but again, that's one of those things that that we see.
And of course, you ask yourself. I mean, he's a stray, so you ask yourself, like, what happened? You know, I mean. It wasn't necessarily intentional, but you know, still, it's one of those things where he comes in and he has this issue that has to be dealt with.
Right.
And he's such a great cat too. He's really sweet. But you know, this is, again, you'd like to say that this was unusual, but you know, these types of things that we see quite a bit. Yeah. So
and left untreated, you know, that's very painful.
Very painful.
A lot of infection.
Very
a lot
painful.
of bad things that can
and
very painful.
And obviously, you know, now that, you know, winter time is rolling around, it's very often, you know, we have to be very careful of frostbite on the pads and on the ears, and we see a lot of that in winter time. Unfortunately, we see too much of it.
But unfortunately, well, this wasn't frostbite though.
It
was a little early for frostbite.
This was an actual chemical burn, but healing very nicely. And again, this is one of those things where, you know, Goober came in maybe I think he was about a month ago, and obviously
so it took about a month for these to heal.
Yeah. So with the right kind of.
He'll be. Hopefully going up for adoption soon. And
and he is a great cat.
Oh, he's got a great motor.
Yeah, he's a sweet, sweet guy. So Goober, all right.
Who's next?
Well, I think what we're going to do, Cheryl, is, you know, we have some animals, obviously, that we've seen in the last month or so. Now, they're not necessarily available for viewing, or they might be in foster care, or they might have gotten adopted already. But, you know, for instance, we just recently got an animal, a cat, and we named the cat Manhattan.
Okay.
And this kitty,
here again, a stray.
A stray, came in really tough shape, had broken teeth, which was extremely, I mean, very, very, I mean, you can well imagine if you would break off your teeth, you know.
Teeth broken off at the gum line?
At the gum line.
Oh,
yeah. Ow
okay.
is right. And so very, very painful, obviously infected, you know, so we put Manhattan into a a foster home to kind of get him, because obviously he's going to need a dental, and we're going to have to deal with that. And of course, there's again that cost attached to that.
Right.
But broken actual parts of the tail were also broken, where there were old fractures in the tail, and not, not addressed.
Right.
So.
And here again, we don't know how these things happen.
Well, the interesting thing about Manhattan, though, is that Manhattan belonged to somebody somewhere along the line, because front declawed and altered. Okay. So
here's a spayed, or a neutered cat, front declawed, roaming around outside with broken tail and broken teeth.
Yeah. So, and obviously, I mean, cats are very stoic. We know that animals are stoic to begin with.
Right. They don't show pain.
Right. They don't show pain because that's a weakness.
Vulnerability.
Yeah, exactly.
In the animal kingdom.
Right.
If you show vulnerability, you're lunch.
Right. Exactly. So that's nature, but the truth of the matter is extraordinarily painful. Very, very tough for these animals. And so Manhattan is one, again, that is in foster care right now, but we're going to have to address that. We're going to be showing pictures of these animals as we talk about them as well.
Right.
And then, of course, we have our little puppy that came in.
Karis. She was abandoned in an apartment. Thankfully, she was found after only 4 days, but still, she was abandoned.
No food,
no water. And had it been later in the year, no heat, And so, what do you do when you're a 3-month-old puppy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to mention too, Cheryl, that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that situation, but abandoned animals is relatively common. We are seeing that more and more often, where people, rental situations, and people just leave their animals behind.
Right.
And why?
Right. Bring them to us.
Yeah.
Don't leave them there. Bring them to us. Now I have a question. If somebody leaves an animal abandoned in an apartment, can they be prosecuted for that?
They
for
can,
abandonment?
sure, they can.
But
There
you
is
have
a
to-
law,
but you have to
find them.
Okay.
And the other thing too is just that you can't just go on to property. You have to find the owner of the property. You have to get permission. You can't. Again, we're talking about animals being property, and so I could not go into somebody's property to rescue an animal until I had permission to do so. Crazy, but true.
Yeah. So you have to, like in the case of a rental property, you have to get the landlord or somebody to open the door for you. I mean, we can't just call the police and have them break down the door.
Right. Although there are extenuating circumstances.
Circumstances where that can be done.
Right. Exactly.
And again, for little Karis, it's very exciting to know that after her stay here, she recently went to her new forever home. Sure. And here again, there are happy endings for these animals, but it's unfortunately that any animal has to go through any form of abuse and neglect before they're adopted into a loving home.
Yeah, and I, like this abandonment to me is just, I don't understand it. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
There's, they take them to a place. I mean, what are they thinking? I mean, that animal is going to, if someone does not intercede, that animal is going to die in that property.
Right.
So, and a horrible death, slow.
Right. Starved to death.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So terrible, terrible thing to do to people.
So we also have a little guinea pig.
Yes.
Little guinea pig, and I know you love the name.
Yeah. Piglet.
A little guinea pig named Piglet. And she came in. I think it's a he, I'm not sure. Piglet came to us suffering from malnutrition, and because of that malnutrition, Piglet is only able to use 3 of her legs.
Right.
She has suffered some type of trauma to one of her legs, and there isn't anything that we can do to reverse that. I mean, we can give her the best food possible now, but the damage is already done, and it's fortunate she's doing well on the 3 legs, and she'll be able to probably survive quite well. But here again, not understanding and meeting the needs of that animal. And this is where we talk about unintentional neglect.
Right.
Well, I gave it something to eat.
Right.
Gave them
food,
gave them water, but not the proper nutrition, what they need to maintain.
Absolutely.
And I think we see that a lot here at the shelter also with reptiles. the few that we get in, some of the lizards and the iguanas and those types of animals. They need a very specialized diet. Rabbits are another one. We had little Gertie that came in, and she was literally being starved. And rabbits need greens, and they need a certain amount of greens, and they need Timothy hay, and the things that they need. And if people don't provide that for them, physically they're going to suffer, and that is going to cause illnesses.
Sure. In long term, it can very well, and rabbits are very delicate. They have a very sensitive stomach.
Right, and here again, that's another. It's like we're here. If you have an animal and you're not sure what you're supposed to be feeding or how do you take care of that animal, use us as a resource.
Right.
There's no reason to get a pet and not take proper care of it.
And then of course we had another cat that we just recently had, and we're not going to bring her out because she's a little contagious at this point. But her name is Dinah, and she's a little calico, and 12, 16 years old, wandering the streets, isn't that sad?
It is sad. It is sad.
It's just so sad.
I don't know how.
And obviously
how people do that.
Let go or dumped or whatever the case might be. Double ear infection, really bad. I mean, really bad, which obviously has to be addressed.
And so she has an actual ear infection.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Double ear. Yeah.
Okay. And I think it's also important. She has a double ear infection. Again, that can be treated. Some other things that people don't always treat are fleas, or for cats especially, ear mites. Ear mites need to be treated medically. They can cause so much damage inside the ear, and it is so uncomfortable for that animal. The itching, the burning, I can only imagine. And then it can also cause the ear to be malformed because the ear mites are literally, damaging the inner part of that ear. And so here again, my cat just has dirty ears. No, you need to have that addressed medically. So people need to be aware that letting those things go, that's when neglect starts to turn into abuse.
I think it's important, Cheryl, to mention again to our viewers that people need to speak out. They need to be a voice for animals. If you see something, you need to report it. Call us. Call your local law enforcement. Don't let it go. You can remain anonymous if that's important to you. Obviously it's more credibility if you can give a name.
Well, and I think it's also important when you're reporting. If you have a neighbor that you think is abusing their pet, write down the times and the dates and keep a log of what you see.
Got to have an address.
Yeah, you got to have an address. But that's all so important to the police department. You just can't say, well, the other day I saw my neighbor beating up his dog.
Right.
You have to give them some, instances. And if you can, everybody's got a cell phone these days. Take a picture of what's going on and help the animals and help the other people that may be involved in this abusive or neglectful situation by reporting it. I think I would rather be red in the face, embarrassed that I reported something that wasn't true, than to know that I may have had a hand in the death of a person or an animal.
Right. The other thing that I also want to mention, Cheryl, real briefly, is that, again, in order for these types of issues to be addressed the way they should be addressed, the laws have to change. Now, you can go to, everybody's on the internet nowadays. You can go to the Humane Society of the United States. They have a wonderful website. They'll tell you how you can get involved. The ASPCA, another thing, the American Association, Humane Association is another area. There are so many things out there that will be very specific about what you can do if you choose to, help these animals and change the laws.
Okay, so changing the laws is paramount. So
paramount.
Lot of information in a short span of time.
Yeah.
So
more to talk about. But
right. we hope that you've enjoyed your time with us today, and until next time,
happy tales to you.